The greatest treasures on Earth may still be buried. We have scoured the planet for relics of the past, filling our grandest museums with the artifacts of history. Yet the most profound secrets, the lost cities and legendary hoards, might be resting in the last places we think to look. They are hidden in the silent, stony hearts of the world's most sacred mountains. This is a journey to 25 of those astonishing secrets. You will discover stories that rewrite history, from a lost Inca metropolis to an emperor's tomb guarded by a river. We will explore why these peaks were chosen as eternal vaults and what modern technology is revealing about their hidden chambers. By the end, you will see the map of human history in an entirely new light. What forgotten civilization lies beneath a mountain in the Amazon? Could a prophet's most sacred relic be waiting in a desert cave? The answers are closer than you think, locked in stone and time. What do you believe is still waiting to be found? Deep in the cloud forests of the Andes, a golden legend whispers through the stone. It is the story of Paititi, a city so magnificent it was said to be the final sanctuary of the Inca Empire. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, they were driven by stories of unimaginable wealth, of temples sheathed in gold. The Inca, masters of engineering and statecraft, saw their world collapsing. As the last emperor fled from the stronghold of Vilcabamba, the story goes that he took the empire's most sacred treasures and its most loyal people into the deepest wilderness. Their destination was a secret city, a place the Spanish could never find, built high in the mountains where the condors fly. This was Paititi, a myth that became a historical quest. For centuries, explorers have vanished into the rugged borderlands of Peru and Bolivia, lured by fragments of evidence. Old missionary texts spoke of a powerful kingdom in the jungle. Local legends described a place of stone palaces hidden behind waterfalls. In recent years, the search has moved to the skies. Satellite imagery and aerial surveys have revealed something startling in the dense Amazonian foothills of southeastern Peru. There, under the green canopy, the land shows faint but unmistakable geometric patterns, straight lines and perfect rectangles that nature simply does not make. These formations, visible only from above, suggest the outlines of vast, buried structures, perhaps plazas or temple foundations reclaimed by the earth. Could this be the footprint of the lost refuge? Every potential clue deepens the mystery. A stone carving found in a remote cave seems to depict a map. A waterfall's roar is said to hide a cavern entrance, yet the mountain itself is the greatest guardian. The terrain is brutally steep, shrouded in mist and teeming with hazards. It is a landscape that protects its secrets fiercely. The story of Paititi is more than a treasure hunt. It is the echo of a civilization's last, desperate act of preservation, choosing to vanish into the sacred peaks rather than surrender its soul. This belief that a mountain can swallow a city whole to keep it safe is the very first secret we uncover, and it sets the stage for all the others. The same impulse to hide a civilization's heart within a mountain drove the greatest conqueror in history to choose his own final disappearing act. When Genghis Khan, the founder of the Mongol Empire, died in 1227, his followers faced a dilemma of epic scale. How do you bury a man whose name shook the world in a way that his grave can never be found, never be desecrated? Their solution was a masterpiece of secrecy, woven into the very landscape of his homeland. According to the accounts, his funeral procession carried his body back to the sacred Burkhan Khaldun mountain in Mongolia, a peak he had revered since his youth as a place of sanctuary and spiritual power. There, the legends say, his loyal soldiers executed a plan of breathtaking finality. They diverted the course of a river directly over the chosen burial site, allowing the water to flow atop the tomb, sealing it under a permanent, liquid cloak. Then, to erase all trace, the slaves who dug the tomb were executed, and the soldiers who executed them were in turn killed by another detachment. The exact location was swallowed by the steppe, guarded by silence and a powerful cultural taboo that forbade even speaking of it. For 8 centuries, this secret has held. The tomb of Genghis Khan is not merely a lost grave, it is a historical black hole. Inside could lie not just the remains of the emperor, but potentially the plundered wealth of countless kingdoms and artifacts that could rewrite our understanding of Mongol culture at its zenith. Modern searches have had to respect the deep taboos, turning to technology that does not disturb the earth. Teams have used satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and drones to scan the vast, rugged slopes of Burkhan Khaldun, looking for unnatural patterns under the soil or riverbeds. They have found intriguing anomalies, areas where the geology suggests human alteration, but definitive proof remains elusive. The mountain, like a loyal guardian, keeps its vow. This quest highlights a profound truth that some secrets are protected not just by earth and stone, but by memory and reverence, making them perhaps the most secure of all. While Genghis Khan's tomb was hidden by water and fear, another relic was concealed through prophecy and desperation. The fate of the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object of the ancient Israelites, is a mystery that has captivated the world for millennia. Many know the claim that it rests in a church in Ethiopia, but an older, more haunting theory points to a lonely mountain across the Jordan River. According to the biblical book of Maccabees, as the Babylonian army closed in on Jerusalem in the 6th century before the BC Common Era, the prophet Jeremiah received a divine warning. He took the ark, along with the tabernacle and an altar of incense, and led a small, faithful group up into the mountains. The text states he found a cave on Mount Nebo, the very peak from which Moses first glimpsed the promised land, and sealed the treasures inside. The location, he declared, would remain unknown until God gathers his people again. This story transforms Mount Nebo from a scenic overlook into a potential vault of unimaginable significance. Imagine the scene: the gleaming gold of the ark, a chest said to hold the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, being carried away from the doomed temple, its guardians climbing the dusty paths to bury hope itself in a secret chamber. For centuries, this version of the story was largely overshadowed by the Ethiopian tradition, yet it has never been forgotten. Mount Nebo in Jordan has been the site of extensive archaeological work, focused mainly on a magnificent Byzantine church with breathtaking mosaics. But what lies beneath the mountain's stony skin? Modern surveys using ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive tools have mapped numerous natural caves and fissures in the area, any one of which could match the ancient description. No expedition has ever announced a discovery, but the search is less about digging and more about listening to the landscape's whispers. The power of this secret is not merely in finding a golden box. It is in the idea that a civilization's spiritual heart was deliberately saved, not stolen, hidden in a sacred mountain to await a future redemption. It is a promise sealed in stone, making Mount Nebo not just a memorial to the past, but a keeper of a covenant for the future. From the sacred promise of Mount Nebo, we travel to a vault of a different kind, built not from prophecy, but from paranoia and power. Beneath the iconic red walls and golden domes of the Moscow Kremlin lies a secret that has tantalized historians and treasure hunters for centuries. It is the legend of the lost library of Ivan the Terrible. Tsar Ivan IV, a ruler infamous for his brutal reign, was also a man of profound contradictions, a scholar who amassed one of the world's greatest collections of knowledge. He inherited ancient Greek and Roman texts from the Byzantine emperors, added rare manuscripts from across his expanding realm, and was said to have housed them all in a magnificent library that rivaled Alexandria's. Yet as his mind grew more suspicious and his rule more violent, the story goes that he ordered this priceless collection hidden, The chosen location was a network of secret chambers and tunnels deep beneath the Kremlin itself, a fortress built upon Borovitsky Hill, a site considered sacred by Slavic peoples long before Moscow existed. This was not just a hiding place, it was a symbolic act, burying the light of classical knowledge under the very heart of his own terrifying power. The scale of what might be down there is staggering. Accounts describe chests filled with works by Aristotle and Plato thought lost forever, illuminated gospels from Constantinople's finest scribes, and maps depicting lands unknown to European cartographers. For over 400 years, the search has been relentless but fruitless. Tsar Peter the Great ordered excavations. Stalin, during his renovations of the Kremlin, had teams probe its foundations. Every attempt has crashed against the same formidable obstacles. The Kremlin is not a museum. It is a living, working nerve center of the Russian state, a labyrinth of centuries-old masonry, modern utilities, and intense security. Digging is politically impossible and geologically perilous. The hill is a complex web of natural springs, unstable soil, and layers of construction from every era. Modern seekers have turned to ground-penetrating radar and architectural scans, revealing voids and anomalies that could be chambers or could simply be old cellars or geological formations. The legend persists because it speaks to a universal truth that knowledge itself is a treasure, and sometimes the most powerful men choose to bury it rather than share it. The Kremlin's secret is a mountain of stone and history, guarding a hoard not of gold, but of memory, waiting for a time when its gates might finally be unlocked. The impulse to bury knowledge beneath a fortress finds a far older echo in the sands of Egypt. Gazing across the Giza plateau, the Great Sphinx presents a riddle carved from living rock, and for some, its greatest secret lies not in its weathered face, but deep within the earth beneath its pores. This is the theory of a hall of records, a hidden library said to contain the lost wisdom of a sophisticated precursor civilization, perhaps even Atlantis. The idea gained modern traction from the American mystic Edgar Cayce, who in the early 20th century described, during trance states, a sealed chamber beneath the Sphinx. He claimed, it held the archived history and advanced technology of Atlantis, placed there for safekeeping by survivors of that drowned continent, and meant to be rediscovered in a future time of great need. This prophecy, while dismissed by scholars, tapped into a powerful and persistent theme that the ancients intentionally sealed away their deepest knowledge for a future generation. Intriguingly, science has not entirely closed the door on the possibility of hidden spaces. The Giza Plateau is sacred ground, a man-made mountain range of tombs and temples, and the Sphinx itself is known to have cavities. There is a well-documented small tomb shaft beneath the monument, explored in the 19th century and found empty. But more compelling are the results of seismic and ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted in the 1990s. These studies, led by researchers from various institutions, identified several large, rectangular anomalies beneath the limestone around the Sphinx, particularly between its pores and along its flanks. These anomalies suggest the presence of chambers or tunnels that are not natural geological formations. The data showed spaces with flat ceilings and right angles, hallmarks of human construction. Why then has there been no major excavation to uncover them? Mainstream archaeology remains deeply skeptical for several key reasons. First, the plateau is a UNESCO World Heritage Site of unimaginable fragility. Drilling or digging without absolute certainty is seen as reckless. Second, geologists argue the anomalies could be pockets of differently dense rock or ancient water-carved cavities that happen to have geometric shapes. Third, there is no textual or artistic evidence from ancient Egypt itself that mentions such a hall. For Egyptologists, the Sphinx is a monumental guardian statue, likely built for the pharaoh Khafra, not the lid of a time capsule. Yet the mystery endures because it speaks to a fundamental human question: what if our understanding of history is incomplete? The image of a hidden chamber, a silent library waiting under the watchful gaze of the Sphinx, challenges us to wonder what the builders truly knew and what they might have chosen to leave buried under their most sacred ground. That same drive to protect a legacy from destruction sent another legendary treasure into the mountains, this time carried by knights on the run. When King Philip IV of France moved to destroy the Knights Templar in 1307, he was not just targeting an order of warrior monks. He was assaulting the closest thing medieval Europe had to an international bank. The Templars had amassed staggering wealth, not just in gold and silver, but in sacred relics, financial records, and land deeds from a century of crusading and banking. As their brothers were arrested and tortured, a core group of knights, forewarned, is said to have acted with military precision. They loaded the order's most vital treasures onto a fleet of ships at the port of La Rochelle, and that fleet, along with its priceless cargo, vanished from all historical records. This disappearance is the seed of one of Europe's most enduring treasure legends. Where did they go? One persistent theory points not to a distant island, but to the sacred mountains of the continent itself. In Croatia, legend speaks of Mount Šibenik, a formidable peak whose deep, labyrinthine caverns could have offered a perfect, defensible vault. The fleeing Templars, experts in fortification and secrecy, would have known how to seal a treasure within living rock, leaving no mark on the landscape. This story finds echoes in other rumored sanctuaries. In the south of France, the peculiarly pyramidal peak of Bugarak has long been shrouded in myth. Local tales insist it is hollow, holding secrets of the Templars and even the Holy Grail. Its reputation as a place of strange magnetic energies and UFO sightings in modern times only adds to its aura as a keeper of forbidden knowledge. Similarly, the remote glens and caves of Scotland, a country that refused to persecute the Templars, are dotted with stories of mysterious knights appearing to guard hidden vaults in the highlands. The visual evidence is, of course, circumstantial, which is what makes the mystery so compelling. You can stand at the base of Bugarak, or look at a medieval map showing Templar preceptories clustered near certain mountain ranges and feel the puzzle click into place. Their entire operation was built on secrecy and sacred geometry. What better place to hide the physical proof of their power than within the Earth's own cathedrals? The treasure itself is almost secondary to the greater secret it may hold. Some researchers speculate the real prize was not gold, but documents, perhaps evidence of heretical beliefs, or even a discovery made during their excavations under the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. By burying this knowledge in a sacred mountain, the last Templars may have been performing one final act of guardianship, ensuring their truth would outlast the flames that consumed their order. Their legacy became a ghost, woven into the stone of Europe's most enigmatic peaks. The Templars vanished into the mountains of Europe, but in the sacred hills of China, another secret was waiting patiently for its moment to be fully revealed. Far from being lost, the tombs of Mawangdui in Changsha stand as one of archaeology's most complete and breathtaking windows into the ancient world. Discovered in the early 1970s during a hospital construction project, this complex of 3 Han Dynasty tombs, carved into the heart of a hill considered a sacred burial ground, offered a miracle of preservation. The most stunning find was the tomb of Lady Di, the wife of a high-ranking nobleman. When researchers opened her layered, lacquered coffins, they were met with a sight that defied belief. Her body, from the skin on her face to the ligaments in her hands, was perfectly preserved, as if she had died only weeks before, not over 2,000 years ago. This was not an accident of nature, but the result of an elaborate and deeply spiritual technology of immortality. Her body was wrapped in 20 layers of silk and hemp, sealed within 4 nested coffins and buried under layers of charcoal and white clay that created an airtight, watertight, and bacteria-free tomb. But the ultimate protection, the final secret, was what she wore. Lady Di was buried in a suit made of over 1,000 thin, carefully polished plaques of jade, each piece connected by threads of gold wire. This was a jade burial suit, the pinnacle of Han Dynasty funerary practice. The Chinese believed jade possessed magical properties, that it could ward off decay and protect the spirit on its journey to the afterlife. The stone was thought to be the concentrated essence of mountains, a physical piece of the sacred earth itself. And encasing the body in it was an attempt to achieve eternal life, to become one with the enduring power of the world. The tombs were a sealed universe. Alongside Lady Di and her family, archaeologists found an entire catalogue of Han Dynasty life, perfectly preserved in the stable, anaerobic environment. There were silk paintings depicting the cosmos, real meals of stew and fruit laid out in lacquerware bowls, detailed medical texts on silk scrolls, and even the earliest known star maps from China. The Mawangdui tombs are a secret that was not just found, but fully understood. They show us a civilization that did not merely bury its dead, but constructed entire microcosms under sacred hills, believing that through ritual, artistry, and the power of jade, they could conquer death itself. The mountain did not hide a lost city, but an entire philosophy perfectly preserved in silk and stone. Jade was the ancient key to an eternal afterlife, but across the Pacific, explorers sought a different kind of key entirely, one that would unlock a history so bizarre it was almost immediately buried by authorities. In 1909, the Arizona Gazette published a front-page story that should have rewritten the history books. It detailed the discovery by a Smithsonian-backed explorer named G.E. Kincaid of a vast underground citadel carved deep within a remote marble cavern in the Grand Canyon. The report described a labyrinth of tunnels, rooms filled with copper tools, and hieroglyphics that bore a striking resemblance to ancient Egyptian or Tibetan script. Most astonishingly, they claimed to have found a central chamber containing a statue of a cross-legged deity, surrounded by mummified remains. The Grand Canyon, a place of profound sacredness to numerous Native American tribes, was suddenly cast as the possible refuge of a transoceanic civilization. Then, just as suddenly, the story vanished. The Smithsonian Institution denied any knowledge of the expedition, and no follow-up articles appeared. Was it an elaborate hoax, a tall tale for newspaper sales? Or was a discovery of immense, paradigm-shattering importance deliberately suppressed to protect established historical narratives? The truth remains sealed within the canyon's endless layers of stone, but the legend persists because it touches a nerve. It suggests that the sacred mountains and canyons of the Americas might hold secrets far older and more interconnected than we have ever dared to teach. This same landscape of myth and danger cradles another legendary secret a few hundred miles to the south. The Superstition Mountains east of Phoenix are a broken, brutal range of volcanic rock, a place where the sun bleaches bones and shadows hold old fears. Here, the legend of the Lost Dutchman's mine has drawn fortune seekers to their doom for over a century. The story begins with the Peralta family of Mexico, who allegedly operated a rich gold mine in the Superstitions in the early 1800s. After an Apache attack wiped out most of the family, the mine's location was lost, only to be rediscovered decades later by a German immigrant named Jacob Waltz. On his deathbed in 1891, Waltz gave cryptic directions to the Mayans' location, clues involving a landmark called the Weaver's Needle, and a shadow that falls on a certain rock only at a specific time of day. Since then, the mountain has lived up to its name. Dozens of men have vanished or died under mysterious circumstances in the search, their deaths often attributed to the Apache curse, said to protect the sacred ground, or perhaps to the sheer, treacherous nature of the terrain itself. The mountain does not give up its gold easily. What makes this secret so enduring is not just the promise of wealth, but the layers of story baked into the rock by successive cultures. For the Apache, the mountains were a spiritual sanctuary, not a treasure vault. For the Spanish and Mexican miners, they were a source of earthly fortune. For modern prospectors, they are the ultimate puzzle. Each group projected its own desires onto the same unforgiving peaks, and the mountain absorbed them all, becoming a monument not to a single lost mine, but to the human obsession with what might be hidden just out of sight. High in the thin air where the earth meets the sky, the Himalayas hold secrets not of gold, but of enlightenment. Carved into the very cliffs of sacred peaks like Mount Kailash, remote monasteries cling to rock faces that seem to defy gravity and logic. These are not just places of worship. They are living libraries, repositories of spiritual knowledge that have been protected for centuries by their breathtaking inaccessibility. To reach a place like the Tiger's Nest Monastery in Bhutan, pilgrims must climb narrow paths that wind up a cliffside 3,000 feet above the valley floor, a journey that is as much a test of faith as it is of physical endurance. The air grows thin, the wind bites, and every step forward is a step away from the mundane world. Within these silent stone halls, monks guard ancient texts, some written on long scrolls in languages now known only to a few. The knowledge contained here spans philosophy, medicine, astronomy, and deep meditative practices, a cumulative wisdom of a culture that looked inward as much as it looked out. But woven through the teachings are legends of physical wonders. Some speak of the Sintamani stone, a mythical jewel said to grant wishes and illuminate the path to wisdom, hidden away in a secret chamber. Others whisper of Shangri-La, not just a fictional paradise, but a real hidden valley monastery, safeguarding advanced spiritual techniques from a lost age. The true secret of these sky-high sanctuaries is their dual nature. They are both profoundly real, with monks chanting in courtyards swept by Himalayan winds, and deeply mystical, serving as guardians of truths that are meant to be earned, not simply found. The mountain does not merely hide an artifact, it conceals an entire state of being, accessible only to those willing to make the arduous climb, both outwardly and within. The silent, watchful faces of the Olmec present a riddle carved in stone. Scattered across the humid lowlands of Mexico's Gulf Coast, these colossal heads, some standing over 9 feet tall and weighing more than 20 tons, are the iconic masterpieces of Mesoamerica's first great civilization. Their origin story, however, lies far from where they were found. The secret is not what is buried beneath a mountain, but what was taken from its heart. The stone for these monumental sculptures came from the Tuxtla Mountains, a volcanic range rising from the coastal plain. This was no ordinary quarry. The mountains were considered sacred, the home of gods and the source of the very substance of creation. To carve a ruler's likeness from this holy rock was to connect his power directly to the divine forces of the earth. The journey from mountain to plaza is a mystery that defies easy explanation. The nearest basalt flows in the Tuxtla Range are over 60 miles from the major Olmec center of San Lorenzo through swampy, roadless terrain. How did a civilization without the wheel, without draft animals, move a 20-ton block of stone such a vast distance? The most likely theory involves a staggering feat of coordinated labor. Archaeologists believe the Olmec used massive log rollers and rope, perhaps hundreds of people pulling in unison, to inch the raw basalt boulders onto rafts. They would have then floated them down rivers, a journey requiring intimate knowledge of seasonal water levels and incredible skill to prevent a catastrophic sinking. Once at the site, master sculptors, using only harder stone tools and abrasives, would have begun the years-long process of shaping the rough boulder into a human face. But why? The purpose of the heads remains debated. Most scholars believe they are portraits of powerful Olmec rulers, perhaps commemorating their reign or marking their final resting place. Intriguingly, no head has ever been found directly atop a tomb, leading some to speculate they were guardians of sacred spaces, eternal sentinels watching over ceremonial grounds. Their expressions are not generic. Each one possesses distinct features, a personalized helmet, a unique set of lips or eyes, suggesting they represent specific individuals with names and histories now lost to time. When you stand before one of these heads, you're not just looking at a sculpture, you are witnessing the endpoint of an epic pilgrimage. It is the story of a sacred mountain's essence being physically transported to the realm of men, transformed by belief and labor into a permanent symbol of authority. The mountain gave the stone, and the Olmec gave it a face, creating a monument that would outlast their cities and speak across 3,000 years. The Olmec moved mountains to create their rulers' faces, but one emperor commanded an entire landscape to become his eternal tomb. In central China, beneath a vast, man-made mountain of earth known as Mount Li, sleeps Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor who unified the nation. The world knows the staggering sight that guards him, the thousands of life-size terracotta warriors standing in silent formation. Yet this army is merely the outer garrison. The emperor's true resting place, the central tomb mound, remains sealed, a secret locked away for over 2,000 years. Ancient historians wrote of a breathtaking subterranean palace with ceilings inlaid with pearls to mimic the night sky, and rivers of flowing mercury representing the great waterways of his empire. The accounts describe intricate mechanical crossbows set as booby traps, ready to fire on any intruder. For decades, these stories were considered legend, a fanciful tribute to a paranoid ruler's power. Then, modern science offered a startling validation. Remote sensing surveys of the massive, grass-covered mound have detected extraordinarily high concentrations of mercury in the soil pattern, a signature that mirrors the layout of ancient China's rivers. The legends of liquid mercury rivers appear to be true. This presents a profound dilemma. The mercury is both a preservative and a deadly poison, making any excavation incredibly hazardous. Furthermore, the Chinese government, citing respect for cultural heritage and the immense technical challenges, has made a deliberate decision not to open the tomb. It is a policy of preservation, choosing to let the emperor's secrets rest rather than risk their destruction. So we are left to wonder, what lies in that dark, mercury-veined palace? Beyond the potential for unimaginable riches, jewels, and gold, there could be libraries of bamboo scrolls containing lost philosophies and histories, exquisite artworks in silk and lacquer that would rewrite our understanding of Qin dynasty artistry, and perhaps the emperor himself, preserved in a way we cannot yet imagine. The terracotta army was meant to be seen, a display of eternal power, but the tomb beneath the sacred mountain was meant to be eternal, a final, perfect secret. It stands as a reminder that some doors are best left closed, not because we lack curiosity, but out of reverence for the mysteries the past chooses to keep. Beneath the golden dome of the rock in Jerusalem, the earth is honeycombed with whispers. The Temple Mount, known to Muslims as Haram al-Sharif, is not just one of the most contested pieces of land on earth. It is a geological and historical layer cake, each tier holding a secret from a different faith. For Jews, it is the foundation stone of creation and the site of Solomon's first temple, destroyed by the Babylonians. For Christians, it is where Jesus preached. For Muslims, it is the place from which the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. This profound sanctity makes it an archaeological powder keg where every trowel of dirt is scrutinized through the lens of politics and belief. The secrets here are not lost. They are fiercely guarded, buried under centuries of reverence and conflict. Beneath the vast plaza, a hidden world exists. There are ancient cisterns, some large enough to hold over 2 million gallons of water, carved by Judean kings to sustain the temple rituals. There are sealed gates, like the mysterious Golden Gate, walled up centuries ago and rumored to be the entrance the Messiah will use. And there are tunnels, most famously the Western Wall tunnels, which run along the entire length of the Temple Mount's foundational wall, revealing the monumental Herodian stones that have anchored the site for 2,000 years. Walking these narrow, dimly lit passages is like moving through the spine of history. You can press a hand against stones that pilgrims to the Second Temple touched, and just a few feet away, through walls now forbidden to breach, lies the potential heart of the greatest secret. What might still be hidden in the uncharted chambers directly under the mount? The most tantalizing theory involves the first temple, built by King Solomon. When the Babylonians sacked Jerusalem in 586 before the Common Era, did the priests have time to hide the temple's most sacred objects? The Bible describes the Ark of the Covenant, the solid gold menorah, and other ritual vessels. Could they have been lowered into a prepared vault beneath the temple foundation, a chamber so sacred and secret that its location was passed down only to a select few? This idea captivated the Knights Templar centuries later, who, during their occupation of Jerusalem, reportedly conducted excavations beneath the mount, seeking not just treasure, but divine power. Modern archaeology is constrained by an unspoken rule: no digging. Out of respect for the site's extreme sensitivity and to prevent triggering a global crisis, investigations are limited to surveys and studies of existing structures. Ground-penetrating radar scans have suggested the presence of large, unexplained voids and architectural anomalies deep underground, but their contents remain a matter of faith and theory. The secret vaults of the Temple Mount represent a different kind of mystery. It is not a question of a lost location, but of forbidden access. The answers may be just a few meters away, separated not by mountain wilderness, but by the fragile weight of history itself, a testament to the fact that some truths are considered too powerful and too dangerous to ever be fully unearthed. The dense, uncharted jungles of Brazil have swallowed explorers whole, but none left a mystery as compelling as Colonel Percy Fawcett. In 1925, this seasoned British adventurer, armed with centuries-old Portuguese manuscripts and his own meticulous surveys, vanished into the Mato Grosso region while pursuing a vision he called the Lost City of Z. Fawcett was no amateur. He was a respected cartographer and Royal Geographical Society fellow who had spent years piecing together clues from indigenous stories and colonial records. He became convinced that deep within the Amazon, hidden in the ancient weathered mountains considered sacred by local tribes, lay the ruins of a sophisticated pre-Columbian metropolis. This city, he argued, was the cradle of a forgotten civilization that once spanned the continent. His final expedition, consisting of himself, his eldest son Jack, and Jack's friend Raleigh Ramel, marched into the green wilderness and simply never returned. The world speculated wildly. Were they killed by hostile tribes, succumbed to disease, or did they actually find their city and choose to stay? For decades, Fawcett was dismissed as a deluded fool, his theory of a complex Amazonian society contradicted by the prevailing wisdom that the jungle could only sustain small, scattered tribes. Then, modern technology unveiled a secret that vindicated his core belief: the advent of LiDAR, a laser mapping system that can peer through the dense forest canopy, has revolutionized our understanding of the Amazon. From the sky, archaeologists have now identified vast geometric earthworks across the basin. These are not random clearings, but the outlines of fortified villages, ceremonial plazas, complex road networks, and sophisticated agricultural systems supporting populations in the tens of thousands. The jungle, it turns out, is not a pristine wilderness, but a managed landscape, the graveyard of a lost garden built by civilizations we are only beginning to comprehend. These discoveries are most concentrated in areas Fawcett himself had marked as likely sites, near the sacred highlands of the Mato Grosso. So what might still be hidden in those unexplored ranges? If LiDAR can reveal the footprint of a village, what could lie within the mountains themselves? The possibility shifts from myth to a tangible archaeological question. Could there be cave systems used for rituals, or tombs carved into cliff faces, or even the stone foundations of a ceremonial center built to align with the stars from a high plateau? Fawcett's lost city may not have been made of marble, but of earth and wood that has long since melted back into the forest. Yet the sacred mountains, the bones of the landscape, would be the logical place for its most permanent secrets. His disappearance remains a tragic enigma, but his obsession is now seen not as madness, but as prescience. He looked at a sacred mountain and saw a story where others saw only trees, a conviction that the greatest chapters of human history are often written in places we have stopped believing to look. Mount Carmel rises from the Mediterranean coast, not as a single peak, but as a long forested ridge, a place of profound biblical prophecy and quiet, hidden sanctuaries. Here, in a nondescript cave tucked into its limestone slopes, a discovery was made that seems to whisper a name from the Gospels. This is the cave of John the Baptist, a site that blurs the line between ancient tradition and tangible archaeology. For centuries, local Christian and Druze traditions held that this specific cave complex was used by John the Baptist, the fiery prophet who preached repentance and baptized Jesus in the Jordan River. The Bible says he lived in the wilderness, and what better wilderness than the secluded grottos of this sacred mountain? In 2001, archaeologists began a meticulous excavation, and the cave began to yield its secrets. They uncovered a series of carefully carved ritual bathing pools, fed by a natural spring, with steps leading down into the water. These are not Roman baths for leisure. They are mikvaot, Jewish ritual immersion pools used for spiritual purification. The design is unmistakable, and it dates squarely to the early 1st century, the very time John would have been active. Then came the art. On the walls, etched into the soft stone, were early Christian symbols. They found a crude but recognizable depiction of a man with an upraised arm, which some interpret as a figure preaching or baptizing. There were crosses, and most strikingly, an image of a severed head on a platter, a chilling reference to the story of John's own beheading at the request of Salome. These carvings are not from John's time, but from the Byzantine period, several centuries later, indicating that the memory of this cave's sacred association was kept alive by generations of pilgrims. For biblical archaeology, a field often fraught with controversy and forgery, this site is remarkably compelling. It offers no inscribed name, no definitive proof, but a powerful convergence of evidence, tradition, and place. The mountain provides the context, a wilderness retreat close to Nazareth and the Galilee. The archaeology provides the physical setting, a perfect location for a baptizing ascetic with its fresh water and seclusion. The etchings provide the centuries-long echo of veneration. To stand in that cool, dim cavern is to feel the weight of a lived tradition. You can see the smooth depressions worn into the stone steps by countless feet over 2,000 years, and you can trace the simple lines of a cross carved by a believer who journeyed here to connect with the story of the prophet. It transforms John from a purely biblical figure into a man who might have sought solitude in this very space, preparing his message in the quiet heart of a sacred mountain. The cave does not shout its secret. It holds it in the still water of its pools and the silent testimony of its walls. From the sacred stillness of a prophet's cave, we cross into a world of epic myth and modern plunder, where the lines between legend and history blur in the shadow of European mountains. The deep, swirling waters of the Rhine River hold a story older than Germany itself, the saga of the Nibelungenlied. This medieval epic poem tells of a cursed treasure, a hoard of gold so vast it was dragged from a mountain by the hero Siegfried, and later, in a climax of betrayal and tragedy, cast into the river by the Burgundians to keep it from their enemies. For centuries, this was pure mythology, the stuff of Wagnerian opera. Yet along the Rhine's banks, from the Lorelei Rock to the hills of the Rhine Gorge, local folklore insists the treasure is real. It was not lost in the deep river currents, the stories say, but hidden for safekeeping in the countless caves and grottos that pockmark the valley's steep, forested slopes. These mountains, carved by the river, became the natural vault for a nation's foundational myth. Generations have searched, drawn by tales of a golden hoard guarded by a dragon's ghost, but the true secret may be symbolic. The treasure of the Nibelungs represents the fatal price of greed and the desire to bury a sin so deep that not even a river can wash it clean. The mountain caves serve as the perfect metaphor, a geological conscience where a legendary crime is sealed in stone. A different and very real crime from a dark modern chapter leads us to another mountain range a few hundred miles to the east, the Ore Mountains, or Erzgebirge, separating Germany and the Czech Republic, are a labyrinth of centuries-old mining tunnels. In the final chaotic days of the Second World War, a priceless piece of history vanished into this maze. It was the Amber Room, a chamber of overwhelming beauty presented to Peter the Great of Russia in the 18th century. The entire room, walls and all, was a masterpiece of Baroque art, consisting of over 6 tons of intricately carved amber, gold leaf, and mirrors. When Nazi troops looted it from the Catherine Palace near Leningrad, they packed it into crates. As the Allied noose tightened in 1945, those crates disappeared. The most persistent theory is that they were hidden in the vast, complex network of mines in the Ore Mountains, a place where the Nazi regime had already stashed countless other stolen artworks and bullion. Expeditions have combed salt mines and silver shafts for decades. They have found other treasures, but never the glowing amber panels. The contrast with the Nibelung myth is stark. One is a poetic allegory about moral corruption born from the land and whispered through the ages. The other is a documented act of cultural theft, a physical void where a masterpiece should be. Yet both secrets share a common guardian, the mountain itself. Whether holding a mythic hoard or a stolen room, these peaks act as Europe's silent archivists, absorbing both our greatest stories and our most terrible deeds into their unyielding rock, challenging us to decide what is worth recovering and what is better left as a cautionary tale buried in the dark. While legends speak of treasures hidden away, one sacred landscape gave up its secret in the form of an entire world turned inward. Beneath the eerie moon-like surface of Turkey's Cappadocia region, where wind-carved spires, cold fairy chimneys dot the horizon, lies a discovery that proves truth can be stranger than any myth. It is the ancient underground city of Derinkuyu, a labyrinth not merely buried, but meticulously carved from the living rock. This was not a tomb or a temple, but a subterranean metropolis built for survival. The soft volcanic stone, called tuff, came from the very mountains that defined this sacred region, and ancient builders used it not to construct upward, but to dig downward with astonishing ambition. The scale is almost impossible to grasp until you stand within it. Derinkuyu plunges over 250 feet deep, a stacked hive of 18 levels that could shelter an estimated 20,000 people along with their livestock and supplies. You descend through narrow, defensible passages that could be sealed at a moment's notice with massive, circular stone doors, each weighing several hundred pounds. The engineering is breathtaking in its foresight. Over 50 ventilation shafts, some stretching all the way to the surface, provided fresh air to even the deepest chambers. There were stables for animals, wine and oil presses, kitchens with chimneys cleverly designed to dissipate smoke, communal rooms, and even dedicated chapels with arched ceilings and simple crosses etched into the walls. This was a society prepared to live underground for months, perhaps even years, to escape the threats raging on the surface, whether they were invading armies or the harsh extremes of the climate. Derinku is not alone. It is part of a vast connected network, linked by tunnels several miles long to another underground city, Kaymakli. And across Cappadocia, over 200 such underground settlements have been identified, with many more likely waiting to be found. Each new discovery raises profound questions. How many other subterranean cities lie beneath other sacred mountains around the world, still hidden, their entranceways lost to landslides or simply never recorded? The existence of Derinkuyu transforms our understanding of ancient ingenuity. It shows that sometimes the greatest secret is not a single object, but an entire way of life, a parallel civilization that thrived in the cool, silent dark, using the mountain not as a shield for treasure, but as a sanctuary for community itself. The silent, arid cliffs of the Judean desert hold a secret of parchment and prophecy. This is the landscape of Qumran, where the dry, dead air performed a miracle of preservation for 2,000 years. In the late 1940s, a Bedouin shepherd tossing a stone into a cave heard the sound of shattering pottery, and the world gained the Dead Sea Scrolls. These ancient manuscripts, hidden in clay jars by a Jewish sect called the Essenes, contained the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible, along with unique texts outlining their secluded, ascetic life. The discovery was monumental, but it may have been only the first chapter. Archaeologists are now convinced that the story is incomplete. The Essenes chose these caves for a reason. The remote, sacred bluffs overlooking the Dead Sea provided perfect natural vaults, safe from the political turmoil of their time. If they hid one library, why not others? The greatest remaining secret may not be more scrolls of scripture, but the literal key to a treasure. Among the original finds was the bizarre copper scroll, a document unlike any other. It is not written on parchment, but on thin sheets of copper, and it lists in cryptic language 64 hiding places for enormous quantities of gold and silver. It reads like a treasure map, describing locations involving specific valleys, cisterns, and tombs. The scroll's very material suggests its message was meant to last, a permanent record of where the community's wealth, or perhaps the temple's tithes, were secreted away. For decades, scholars and adventurers have tried to decode its directions, searching for landmarks that have vanished or names that have changed. The treasure, estimated in the tons, has never been found. Today, the race to uncover what remains is a battle between technology and time. Modern teams use drones equipped with high-resolution cameras and thermal sensors to scan every crack and crevice in the vast, treacherous cliff faces, looking for caves too high or too dangerous for a person to reach easily. They map the desert in grids, searching for anomalies that could signal a hidden chamber. But they are not alone. Looters, armed with the same tools and driven by the black market's high prices for antiquities, scour the same landscape under cover of darkness. Every night, the risk grows that a new cave will be found, not by a scientist who will document and preserve, but by a thief who will rip its contents away, scattering context and history to the winds. The urgency is palpable. Each undiscovered cave is a time capsule, potentially holding more scrolls that could shed light on the birth of rabbinic Judaism and early Christianity, or perhaps the physical proof of the copper scroll's glittering list. The sacred mountains of the desert are not just keeping secrets, they are in a silent standoff, guarding their fragile parchment against the modern world's relentless hunger. The desert sands of Siwa hold a promise made to a god. At the height of his power, Alexander the Great undertook a perilous journey across the Libyan desert to reach this remote oasis, home to the legendary oracle of Zeus Ammon. There, in the shade of ancient palms, the priest reportedly greeted him as the son of the god himself. This divine affirmation shaped Alexander's vision of his own rule, and according to several ancient historians, it shaped his final wish. He desired to be buried here at the sacred temple in Siwa, to rest for eternity as the acknowledged son of Ammon. History, however, took a different turn. After his death in Babylon in 323 before the Common Era, his body was prepared for an epic funeral procession back to Macedonia. But one of his generals, Ptolemy, intercepted the magnificent funeral carriage and diverted it to Egypt, installing Alexander in a grand tomb in the city that bore his name, Alexandria. This act was about power, a claim to legitimacy by possessing the physical remains of the great conqueror. For centuries, Alexander's tomb in Alexandria was a site of pilgrimage for Roman emperors and travelers, a monument to his earthly glory. Then it vanished from all records, likely destroyed by earthquakes or rising sea levels. This disappearance reignited an ancient question. Could his original wish have been secretly honored? The theory is tantalizing. Is it possible that while the public tomb was built in Alexandria, a smaller, secret delegation carried his true remains to Siwa, fulfilling his sacred vow? The oasis itself is a fortress of isolation, a cluster of palm groves and salt lakes surrounded by hundreds of miles of dunes. The temple of the oracle still stands in ruins on a rocky outcrop known as Agurmi. The area is riddled with tombs from the 26th dynasty. The local geography is a maze of crumbling cliffs and hidden caverns. Modern searches have been sporadic, hampered by the site's fragility and the sheer scale of the surrounding desert. Any tomb built in secrecy would have been designed to avoid detection, perhaps sealed within a natural cave system or buried beneath the temple complex itself. Finding it would be the ultimate archaeological triumph, a direct link to the man who reshaped the ancient world. But the impact would go far beyond the discovery of a sarcophagus. It would be a window into the mind of Alexander, revealing the depth of his spiritual beliefs and his desire to be remembered not just as a king, but as a divine figure. The artifacts within could be staggering, not merely gold, but personal items, scrolls from his library, or maps from his campaigns. The sacred mountain of Siwa in this light is not just a potential tomb. It is the keeper of a king's last unfulfilled prayer, a secret that would rewrite the final chapter of his story, not as a political pawn, but as a man who sought his father in the silence of the desert. The desert oasis of Siwa held a promise of divinity, but another cave offered the promise of a miracle. Tucked into the slopes of Mount Ankylos near the ancient city of Ephesus in Turkey, a simple stone entrance leads to a place where time itself is said to have bent. This is the Cave of the Seven Sleepers, a site sacred to both Islam and Christianity, where legend tells of devout youths who chose eternal sleep over abandoning their faith. The story, in its essence, is a powerful tale of persecution and divine protection. In the 3rd century, during the reign of a Roman emperor who demanded worship of idols, 7 young men refused. They fled to this hillside cave to pray and were discovered. The emperor, in his wrath, ordered the cave entrance sealed with massive stones, condemning them to a dark and suffocating death. But God had another plan. He placed the youths into a deep, miraculous slumber, preserving their bodies as if in a sacred pause. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell outside the sealed entrance. When a landowner finally opened the cave to use it as a cattle pen, the sleepers awoke, thinking they had napped only a single day. One of them went into the city to buy food, only to find a world transformed, where crosses now adorned public buildings and people spoke openly of Christ. Their coins, minted centuries earlier, gave them away. They had slept through the entire persecution, awakening into a world that now honored their faith. After telling their story to a bishop, the youths lay down in the cave once more and died peacefully, their long vigil finally complete. This beautiful legend of faith preserved across time is not confined to one mountain. You can find echoes of it from Spain to China, a story so universal it seems to speak to a deep human longing for sanctuary and justice. In Turkey, the specific site associated with the sleepers is a tangible, poignant place of pilgrimage. The cave entrance is still visible, a low arch of weathered stone set into the hillside. Inside, the cavern opens up, cool and dim. The walls are lined with ancient burial niches, and you can see faded inscriptions in Greek and Latin left by pilgrims over 1,000 years ago who came to this spot seeking blessings or healing. Artistic renditions from medieval manuscripts often show the sleepers side by side, peaceful in their rest, with a faithful dog guarding the entrance, adding another layer of tender loyalty to the tale. For archaeologists, the site is a complex puzzle. It is a genuine Roman-era catacomb, a cemetery from the very period the legend describes. The inscriptions and the graves are real. The miracle, of course, leaves no physical evidence, and that is precisely the point. The cave's significance lies in this perfect overlap. It is a real historical space that gave root to an enduring story of hope. Pilgrims do not come to dig for proof. They come to touch the same walls, to stand in the same silence that inspired a legend about the faithful being sheltered by the very rock of a sacred mountain, kept safe until a better world dawned. It transforms the cave from a simple hole in a hill into a symbol, a reminder that some secrets are not about what is hidden, but about how long hope can sleep, waiting for its moment to awaken. The story of King Solomon's mines is a tale woven from scripture and shimmering mirage. For centuries, the Bible's description of Solomon's unparalleled wealth, his gold from Ophir, and his fleets that returned every 3 years laden with treasure, fueled a global hunt. The logical conclusion was that such riches must have come from a secret network of mines, hidden in a distant, sacred land. This quest led Victorian explorers deep into Africa and across the Arabian deserts, but the truth, as it so often does, lay closer to home in a landscape of breathtaking, rust-colored stone. In the stark, beautiful Timna Valley of southern Israel, a place of sacred mountains and wind-sculpted pillars, archaeologists found the mines. They are not gold, but copper, and their story is even more fascinating than the legend. The valley is a natural copper ore deposit, and for thousands of years, it was a hive of industrial activity. The scale is immense, a vast network of tunnels, smelting camps, and slag piles visible from satellite imagery, etched into the earth like the scars of a forgotten giant. For a long time, these ruins were attributed to King Solomon in the 10th century, before the Common Era, a perfect match for the biblical timeline of his reign. The mines seem to solve the mystery, proving the historical basis for the king's fabled prosperity. But science, through meticulous archaeology and advanced dating techniques, began to separate the layers of time from the layers of legend. The copper mines of Timna are far older than Solomon. Operations began in the Chalcolithic period over 6,000 years ago and reached their absolute peak several centuries before the United Monarchy of Israel even existed. The real masters of this enterprise were the Egyptians of the New Kingdom, particularly under the mighty pharaohs of the 19th dynasty, like Ramesses III. Excavations have uncovered Egyptian seals, inscriptions, and artifacts throughout the valley. The mining technology was sophisticated and brutal. They used fire setting, heating the rock with intense fires and then dousing it with water to make it crack, before chiseling out the copper ore with stone and bronze tools. The work was done by a mix of skilled Egyptian overseers and likely conscripted or enslaved local Canaanite laborers, toiling in dangerous, cramped, and suffocatingly hot conditions. So, where does Solomon fit in? His kingdom may have controlled the trade routes that carried Timnah's copper north, taxing the commerce and growing wealthy from it, which over centuries blurred into the story that he owned the source itself. The valley itself, flanked by mountains considered sacred by the local Edomites, was not just a mine, it was a ritual landscape. A small, Hathor-headed Egyptian shrine was found near the mines, where overseers and workers might have prayed for protection from the perilous work. The real secret of Timnah is not a lost hoard of gold, but a lost chapter of human endeavor. It reveals a sprawling, ancient industrial complex that powered the Bronze Age, long before kings wrote their names into its history. The mountain did not hide Solomon's treasure. It held the truth about how empires are really built, not on sudden wealth, but on the slow, grueling extraction of Earth's most useful metals, a story written in slag and stone. Deep within the oldest and grandest of the ancient wonders, the Great Pyramid of Giza, a secret chamber waited in plain sight for 4,500 years. We have mapped its known passages, the Grand Gallery and the King's Chamber for centuries, believing we understood its basic layout. Then, in 2017, an international team of scientists using a revolutionary form of cosmic ray imaging made a discovery that sent shockwaves through archaeology. They found the Big Void. High above the Grand Gallery, a cavernous space at least 100 feet long was detected, a void of such scale it cannot be an accident of construction. This hidden chamber, sealed since the pyramid was built, is the most significant find inside Khufu's monument in over a century. To see it, scientists did not use drills or cameras. They used muons, subatomic particles that rain down from the atmosphere every second. These particles pass through stone, but denser materials absorb more of them. By placing sensitive muon detectors in known chambers and corridors, the team could essentially take an X-ray of the pyramid's interior, mapping where muons passed through easily, indicating empty space. The data painted a clear picture of a huge, cathedral-like void, its precise shape and purpose still a mystery. So, what is it? Egyptologists have several compelling theories. The leading idea is that it is a relieving chamber, a structural feature designed to redistribute the immense weight of the stone above the king's chamber and prevent it from collapsing. The pyramid already has 5 smaller relieving chambers above the burial room, so a larger one is plausible, yet its size is unprecedented. Another, more tantalizing possibility is that it is a second, unfinished burial chamber, perhaps intended for Khufu himself before plans changed. Could it contain a burial assemblage, or even a sarcophagus? Or perhaps it is a construction gallery, a space used to store materials and guide the massive granite beams into place for the chambers below, later sealed off. The frustration and the fascination lies in its inaccessibility. The void is not connected to any known passageway. To reach it would require drilling through dozens of feet of solid, core masonry, potentially destabilizing the entire monument. This makes it a perfect secret, protected by the very genius of its construction. Current efforts focus on refining the scans, using more muon detectors and even tiny robots to peer through existing cracks, hoping to glimpse the void's contents without invasive action. This hidden space forces us to reconsider everything we think we know. The Great Pyramid, long studied and measured, still holds a central, echoing emptiness at its heart, a deliberate silence left by its builders. It is a reminder that the most sacred mountains of stone are not just tombs, but puzzles, and the grandest puzzle of all still has its largest piece missing, waiting in the dark. Beneath the sun-baked stone of the Yucatan Peninsula, the earth opens into deep, dark eyes. These are the cenotes, natural sinkholes where the limestone crust has collapsed to reveal secret rivers and caverns of crystal-clear water. For the ancient Maya, these were not just sources of life-giving water, but sacred portals to Xibalba, the terrifying and revered underworld. To appease the gods who dwelled below, they offered their most precious possessions, casting them into the silent, dark water in rituals of profound devotion and fear. The most famous of these portals is the sacred cenote at Chichen Itza, a vast circular well over 150 feet across, its green water lying 60 feet below the ground. For centuries, local tradition spoke of the treasures within, but it was dismissed as legend until the early 20th century, when an American diplomat turned archaeologist named Edward Thompson dredged its depths. What he brought to the surface was a testament to a civilization's sacred commerce with the gods. The hall was staggering and deeply human. There were discs of beaten gold depicting warriors and deities, intricately carved jade jewelry that once adorned nobles, beads of amber and coral, and beautifully polished obsidian mirrors. But there were also bones. The dredgers brought up the remains of over 200 individuals, men, women, and children, confirming the grim historical accounts of human sacrifice. These victims were not merely thrown in. Analysis shows many were elaborately dressed and adorned with jade beads before their journey into the watery underworld. A final, fatal honor. Modern technology has allowed us to see these sites with new eyes. Underwater footage from exploratory dives reveals a haunting landscape. Sunlight filters down in shimmering columns, illuminating vast cathedral-like chambers where stalactites drip from ceilings. Divers glide past ancient pottery vessels still sitting on ledges and over fields of scattered bones resting on the silty floor. The water is so clear and the preservation so perfect, it feels as though time has simply stopped. Yet for all we have recovered, the cenotes guard their deepest secrets. The cave systems connected to these sinkholes are vast, labyrinthine, and often perilously narrow. Divers equipped with rebreathers and side-scan sonar have mapped miles of tunnels that branch off from the main pools, passages too tight for anyone to enter. What lies in those furthest, airless chambers? It is entirely possible that the Maya, in their most solemn ceremonies, placed their ultimate offerings in the most inaccessible places, believing the gods deserved treasures that could never be retrieved by man. There could be royal regalia of unimaginable craftsmanship, codices written on bark paper that the water miraculously preserved, or the sealed tombs of high priests themselves. Every artifact found so far was a message, a plea or a payment sent to another world. The unanswered question that hangs in the cool, still air of the cenote is what messages were sent that were never meant to be seen again, sinking into the eternal dark where the sacred and the secret become one. The silent, watery depths of the cenote are a world away from the high, dry air of the Himalayas, where another kind of vault exists, one built not from fear of the underworld, but from reverence for enlightenment. Crowning the red hill in Lhasa, the Potala Palace is a mountain within a mountain, a fortress of faith that has guarded the spiritual heart of Tibet for centuries. Its towering white and maroon walls, rising over 1,000 rooms across 13 stories, are a map of the Buddhist cosmos made manifest in stone and wood. While pilgrims circle its base and tourists marvel at its golden rooftops, the palace's deepest secret is said to lie in the opposite direction, down. Beneath the floors, trodden by millions, hidden vaults and labyrinthine tunnels are rumored to hold the most sacred treasures of the Dali. Lamas, the succession of spiritual leaders believed to be incarnations of the Bodhisattva of compassion. This secrecy is not born of paranoia, but of sacred duty. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition, certain relics and texts possess immense spiritual power, and their handling requires specific rituals and a purified state of mind. They are not meant for public display, but for preservation and veneration by a select few in a controlled, consecrated environment. The palace's very architecture supports this. Its design meticulously separates the outer, public ceremonial spaces from the inner, private quarters and meditation chambers. Deep within the Red Hill, natural caves and constructed cellars are believed to serve as these ultimate repositories. What might they contain? The possibilities are as profound as the faith itself. There could be the preserved bodies of past Dalai Lamas in traditional stupas, sealed with precious stones and metals. There might be libraries of ancient scriptures, written in gold and silver ink on indigo paper, containing philosophical teachings or meditation manuals considered too potent for general study. Some legends even speak of terma, or hidden treasure texts, deliberately concealed by great masters like Padmasambhava centuries ago, to be discovered by a destined finder at a precise time in the future. Access to these potential chambers is, by design, extraordinarily limited. Only the highest-ranking monks and officials would know the full layout of the palace's subterranean levels, and that knowledge is passed down with great solemnity. Modern archaeological investigation is virtually unthinkable here, not for lack of technology, but out of profound respect for the site's living religious significance. The Potala is not a ruin to be excavated. It is a living monastery and a World Heritage Site, where the spiritual and the historical are inseparable. This makes its hidden dimensions the perfect secret. They are protected not by booby traps or poison, but by a wall of devotion and tradition far stronger than any stone. The palace, therefore, stands as the ultimate expression of a sacred mountain's purpose. It does not hide gold to enrich a king, but safeguards wisdom to nourish a culture's soul, reminding us that the most valuable treasures are often those meant not for our eyes, but for our spiritual inheritance, waiting in the silent dark for the moment they are meant to be understood. This technological leap brings with it a profound and unsettling question. Should we uncover every secret simply because we can? The ability to peer through stone and jungle canopy does not come with an instruction manual for the soul. Each of these sacred sites is not merely a location, it is a nexus of memory, faith, and cultural identity. For indigenous communities, a mountain may be the dwelling place of ancestors, not a puzzle to be solved. For religious believers, a sealed tomb or cave is a sacred trust, not a locked door to be picked. The very act of revealing can be a form of violation, stripping a place of its spiritual power and reducing a profound mystery to a catalogued artifact. The ethical dilemma is stark. Do we prioritize human knowledge, or do we honor human belief? There is no easy answer. Consider the tomb of the first emperor. Scientists possess the tools to enter, but they choose restraint, respecting both the physical danger of mercury and the cultural weight of disturbing China's foundational ruler. Contrast this with the fate of countless lesser-known tombs and temples, looted by treasure hunters, whose only technology is a shovel and a disregard for context, scattering irreplaceable history to the highest bidder. Modern archaeology strives for a middle path, using non-invasive technologies to learn without touching, to map without digging. Ground-penetrating radar can outline a buried city's streets, LiDAR can reveal its grand plazas, and muon tomography can confirm a hidden chamber's dimensions. All of this can be done while leaving the Earth itself undisturbed, preserving the site's sanctity for future generations who may have even better ways to understand it. This approach treats the secret not as a prize to be seized, but as a story to be respectfully heard. Yet the pressure is always there. Climate change threatens coastal sites, urban expansion encroaches on ancient ruins, and the black market's hunger for antiquities fuels constant destruction. Sometimes, excavation is a race against loss, a desperate act of rescue. The balance is delicate, a constant negotiation between curiosity and conscience. Perhaps the ultimate lesson from these 25 secrets is that the sacred mountain's greatest gift is not what it hides, but the questions it forces us to ask about ourselves. What do we value more, the satisfaction of an answer or the wisdom to let some mysteries breathe in the dark? The technologies now at our fingertips are not just keys, they are mirrors, reflecting back our own intentions. Will we use them as conquerors or as guardians? The next secret may already be glowing on a LiDAR screen, a ghostly outline in the data. Whether we choose to step through that digital doorway and how we behave when we do will define not only our past, but our legacy for the future. From the silent vaults of Himalayan monasteries to the submerged offerings of Maya cenotes, this journey reveals a profound pattern etched across the globe. Each of these 25 secrets, though separated by oceans and millennia, shares a common guardian. The sacred mountain, in all its forms, has been humanity's chosen vault. These peaks represent more than stone. They are the intersection of our deepest spiritual yearnings and our most tangible histories. We have always looked to the highest, most enduring parts of our world when we needed to protect what mattered most, whether it was a king's gold, a prophet's promise, or an entire civilization's hope for the future. Our ancestors saw in these mountains a permanence that could outlast empires, a silence that could keep a secret, and a sanctity that could honor the divine. This shared impulse connects the Inca fleeing into the Andes with the Templars vanishing into European caves, and the Han dynasty crafting suits of jade for eternity. It is a story not of isolated curiosities, but of a unified human instinct to seek the high ground, both literally and spiritually, when preserving our legacy. The very earth we stand upon is a living archive, its most imposing features deliberately selected as the keepers of our greatest mysteries. As technology grants us new eyes to see through rock and jungle, we are reminded that the next great discovery might not be in a distant star system, but right beneath our feet, waiting in the patient dark of a sacred slope. Which of these buried secrets captured your imagination the most? Let the conversation continue in the comments below. And if you are hungry for more journeys into the heart of history's greatest enigmas, be sure to subscribe. The world is still full of hidden stories, and the next one is waiting just over the horizon, where the last light of the sun gilds an ancient, silent peak.